As always, that recording notice would only be me being recorded here because I'm on Spotlight. In case anybody's worried about being on YouTube or something like that. Right, rubbing your hands together. And then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. The other side. Upper part of your chest. And belly. And your legs. Okay, so usual reclining position, sitting back. Move yourself sinking back into the chair. Notice that in a way you have to make a very deliberate, conscious decision almost to get that feeling of just letting go. It doesn't come easily, and we don't always realize how much tightness and stiffness, how much kind of we're carrying a sense of this, a shape in our body, rather than letting, we might think of us, I suppose, as the natural shape to make itself felt. But with this, of course, quite a lot of muscles are relaxing, so we're not one shape. It depends on what we're doing. Breath nice and quiet. Maybe thinking of that deeper breathing, if that is something that you're comfortable with. Bellows breathing. This posture really helps us to develop the essential feelings of a posture without strain. We can take it a stage further. This posture is actually taken from a sister art to Tai Chi called Each One, where we do a lot of holding of postures. One thing you can do, if you just bring your arms up as though you're holding a ball against your chest, you won't be don't have your arms too high, too far. I can't really sit back, but you want this kind of feeling. So if my arms are up here, I'm straining my shoulders. If they're down here, that's fine. But if I can find a position where the pull of gravity is pulling my arms into my shoulders, and I get this sort of sense of the shoulders being pushed back. So, and it's two things about this: is finding that posture, but also letting your body gradually tone and condition to be able to do that. Trying to relax the big muscles of your shoulders and your arms, and that encourages things like the small muscles, the small movement muscles, the tendons and the ligaments to engage a little bit. I can give you a bit of an open feeling in the front of your body. It can be quite an energizing posture. And you'll find if you practice it that you'll gradually begin to be able to hold it for longer. I mean, some people say you should be trying to hold these positions for 20 minutes, half an hour. I think that's something to build up to. I think to begin with, just get a sense for what the posture has to offer, for as long as you're comfortable with this. When you get to, when you start to feel that your shoulders are aching or something like that, just slowly lower your arms down till you feel that the ball is sort of resting in your lap. The hands just above your legs here. This is also quite a nice posture. You've still got that openness. across the chest. This is called Zhanzhong. It's a standing pole or stand like a tree, depends on the translation. Except we're sitting, of course. And you might even want to, from this position, feel, if your arms are rested, coming up, and just feel the change as your arms come up, this kind of opening up through your belly and your solar plexus. So it starts to help you to become more aware of these subtle connections in your body. But now just place your hands down and bring your feet in and come to the upright position. So if you're doing that in the reclining position, this movement up and down changes the feeling up through belly, solar plexus and chest. And that's something, when for instance, we come to something like rolling the ball in, you may be able to sort of find similar feelings. So again, partly an exercise about physical conditioning and connection, partly an exercise about training your awareness to recognize certain things. But now in the upright position, your weight a little bit forwards, hips dropping back. Drawing your chin in towards your Adam's apple will just raise the occipital ridge, the bony ridge at the top of the spine. Well, the bony ridge at the bottom of the skull, I should say, more accurately. And when you do that, try and be aware of that slight sense of a pull through your spine. So you start to feel a little bit taller, perhaps. And you've got that inner structure, that inner framework, and then muscles of your shoulders, your ribs, back, belly, will just gradually releasing tightness and developing this feeling of just dropping a little bit. Sometimes this is described as though the bones of our body are pushing upwards and the soft tissue is dropping downwards. It's quite an interesting way of looking at it, but I think we need to be careful with this idea that the bones themselves are pushing up. That we don't interpret that as meaning that somehow we have to push the skeleton upwards. It's just a very natural posture. No real there isn't any straining. And all we're trying to do is, as ever, to align ourselves with the pull of gravity and to feel that stronger quality within the body. And slowly turning your head. And shoulders. Notice how the different postures and movements that we go through have the potential to sort of change or to have an impact on our posture. Going forwards. Hands down to your sides. Winding around. So when we talk about posture, we sometimes can sort of like create the impression that it's a fixed thing. This is the posture. What we're looking for is a posture that is appropriate to whatever we're doing. And the three elements really that we want to take into account are obviously ourselves, our body, the ground beneath our feet, and the pull of gravity. So this is why if you're walking along a path and then suddenly you go up a hill, you may lean forward slightly. If you're going down the hill, you may angle backwards because the body just naturally adapts to the environment that it's in. We don't want to work against that, we want to work with it. Winding around. And back the other way. Okay, and then angling forwards and push back. And turn. No direction. And then around. And again, back the other way. And keep the movement nice and smooth, not too big. Then step it out with one foot. And then the other side. hands to your sides. And again, rotating so the palms are forwards and tilt. And then changing. And then rolling the ball in, and again, you'll be feeling that expansive quality up through belly into ribs. That's very much one of those movements that once we've identified it, we want to feel that it gradually becomes very much part of what drives the arms. So we feel it initially because our feet are working and so on, but also because our arms are coming up. So anytime you move your arm, you're engaging elements of the upper body, because all these connections, or most of them anyway, will work two ways. So what we want to do is, rather than the arms producing the effect in the front of the body, is to try and generate that effect in the front of the body to move the arms. And partly that comes from recognizing the push from the feet. There is something rising there. And partly it comes from focusing on those small changes in belly and solar plexus. Just using our memory of that feeling to try and produce it again, try and reproduce it. And just as you might remember something that happened last year, or something you did on holiday, or something like that, and actually remember an embarrassing moment, and you feel embarrassed, and your face starts to go red, and so on and so forth. So memories can stimulate a physical response. And then drawing upon pigeon spread its wings. and then pushing away, just sitting back, elbows coming out just a little bit, and then pressing in, squeezing in. One more time. And roll your fingers into a hollow, loose fist. Punch with both fists. And the weight is still moving. And just remaining alert to what is happening within your body. Chances are, with many of these exercises, you're now familiar enough with them that you've only got to think about the change, and your body will start to do it. They've been hardwired. Now going back to pigeon spreads its wings. So this time, changing into pushing away. Remind yourself of this. A couple of the elbows going out, but the hands staying in front of your hips. And then, again, just for a reminder, here, the elbows don't go out, but there is this strong rotation to compensate for the drawing back. So, in sequence, here, the elbows go out, the hands are drawn out behind them, and then chest closes, bringing your arms as though you're squeezing on the ball. When you sit back here, almost the same thing happens, except the hands stay in front of your hips a little bit. And then you get a more directed movement. And then here, your arms can't come back that far. You don't want your elbows to go behind your shoulders, lose the connection. So some of the backward movement is absorbed in the spiraling of your arms. And then we go back to pigeon spread its wings. Let's do one more round like this. So often quite a small change, like for instance here, not letting your hands be pulled out, but rather swiveling them so they stay in front of your hips, can lead you into a quite different exercise. And then changing. Once more. So when we come to the more vertical movement, see if you can again remember that opening up, that feeling of expansion upwards from your hips to your ribs up to the front of the body, maybe in the back as well, but let's focus first of all on the front. So it's like a wave pushing up underneath your hands, and then you could think of your hands being lowered down initially. That's quite nice because that can help to leave your shoulders nice and soft. Then you imagine you're doing this in water, and suddenly we're needing to maintain more effort to keep the shape of the arms and hands. One more time. Now we're going to change to the wild goose. Again, note any changes. And then parting the clouds. And dragon plus the stars in the sky. Here, of course, that wave-like movement up through the body is more to the side. But once you start to get a sense for what sensation the words or the label or however you're identifying it represent, then you realize that it's not stuck in one place. I try to use a variety of images and descriptions and ideas, hoping that you'll find something within them that will resonate. Some will work better than others for you. Some might work for a while and then fade away, and others start to take on meaning, so on and so forth. Don't get stuck on them. You'll come up with your own awareness as well. We're trying to see what is happening within the body and then to work with it. We're not trying to impose something on the body. We're not trying to control the body with the mind, but rather to integrate mind and body into the movement. Do one more on each side. And then together. Notice where you feel that expansion and contraction now. Notice if there's any difference between what you feel when both hands go up and slightly above your head and when both hands go down. Sorry, when both hands go out. This time we're going to add the turn. Scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And then change. Switch sides. and change. And then this restful. Come back to this resting position. And sometimes after doing, sticking just over half an hour today, that opening set. So feel what's changed. Some of it would have been what's changed in your body. You've warmed up and moved around a bit and so on and so forth. But some of it may also be in your, if you like, your perception of the posture. Okay, now holding your hands over the chest, we're going to do the archer. So turn your left hand out, push away, draw back with your right hand, turn your head so that you're following the movement here of your extended hand and then across and back. The archer pushing out, feeling the opening in the right side of your chest in particular. It's a very big looking exercise. You should do this very gently, especially with the head turn. Do one more on each side. Hand back and then bear play. Your hands coming out now. So what you can feel now is that extension and contraction, that filling up and emptying, happening on alternate sides. So here, left side expands out, right side contracts, and then that seems to move across to the other side of your body. One more time. And once again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Your head and neck. Shoulder. Your arm. On the side. Part of the chest. Belly. And your legs. Okay. That Zhanzhong position, that the holding the ball, is one that's commonly done standing as well. Obviously, that's a bit more tiring, but it can be a very good way of really engaging with your posture, because you have to think, well, how far out do my arms go, and so on and so forth. And again, it's quite a good way of very gently reconditioning your body, because what we do is inevitably, and this is quite a common thing all the way through Tai Chi actually, but for instance, if I stand here, if you look at my shoulders, if I do that, my shoulders have lifted up, they very quickly begin to hurt. And then gradually what happens is like, they drop. And then I'm standing with my legs straight, you stand like that and it starts to ache, and suddenly there's this dropping down. So that it's almost like you deliberately tire out certain muscles so that they fail, and then other muscles are there to take over. I'm not suggesting you necessarily have to do that, but it's worth trying it in that reclining position anyway. And then just sinking down, and your hands coming around, pushing up, and change to the wild goose again. And part in the clouds. Good. Now 1 foot forwards. When we start doing this posture, what we're looking for initially is to maintain a forward-looking posture. So if I imagine, for instance, that there's a wall, my toes are against a wall, going perpendicular there. I want to imagine my hips and my shoulders are parallel to the wall, not slightly to the side. That can be quite tricky because if you are slightly out and you try to pull yourself out, you might find that say for instance the leg twists up a bit. So I'm not kind of fanatical about that. I would rather you were slightly offline and comfortable, and you can gradually work towards the aligned posture, than that you actually kind of wreck your back or your hips or something like that. However, what we do have, of course, is a little bit of freedom of movement, so we can go back and we can turn, because that angle in the back foot allows for a certain amount of movement. So we're not stuck in this position with the shoulders and hips parallel to the line in front. And if we turn the front foot out a little bit, as we do when we do the step in, then actually we can also come around a little bit further here. Now I'm exaggerating this at the moment. You'll see why, hopefully. So here, as I go back and I turn to my right, there's a bit of a pull through the leg, and I can use that pull to help me raise my toes. I put the foot back, and as I turn to the left, there's a pull here, and I can use that to help me bring my heel up. So allowing the body to turn a little bit actually helps us to feel that there's a connection from the hip, just from the hips up to the shoulders, which we know about, but also from the hips down to the feet. The center of the body connects to all parts of the body. And so having that little bit of a turn can actually help to bring the foot in. And if you think about it, you know, when we walk down the road, we kind of swing the hips a bit, don't we? And that helps to move the feet. It can be quite tricky. If you turn too far, you'll stumble around. And I am exaggerating. It doesn't have to be a big movement. Like a lot of movements in Tai Chi, there's almost a kind of suggestion of the movement. And then on the other side, so first of all, in what I would think of as the sort of classic stance, you should find after a while that you don't need to turn the front foot out to feel that connection. As always, one of the things that we do in Tai Chi is that we exaggerate the movement. And if you exaggerate a movement, you can feel the connection. You can then make the movement smaller, but the connection is still there. So turn the front foot out. Another thing about the front foot turning out is you do get to drop the weight a little bit more. And just allow that movement, that turn in, to initiate the movement of the foot. And then stepping in. So when we take the step, the foot can be turned out anyway. So there's going to be a slight movement here. The rest is the same. You know, you put the heel down, the toes down, whichever. The ball of the foot down first if you're going backwards. And all the other things that I've talked about in the past, I'm changing direction now, like the hips dropping and so on, the leg expanding and contracting, are very much part of this still. We'll do fisherman castanet and wind blows the willows, and then we'll do the stepping. And of course, this is a movement that can be quite confusing for people. People say, "Oh, you know, kind of which arm do I, or which leg do I step with?" If you think about it, if I just show you, I do it this way. If I go forwards and I'm turning here, now what's going to happen is this. There's my back heel coming off the ground, so it would be here. And then if you were stepping forward, you'd go to there, and then you'll do this, and so on. Or if you're stepping back, you in the way that we normally do it here, then you'll just push the leg backwards. But either way, if you focus in the center of your body, it actually tells you what to do in a sense. So have your right foot forwards and fisherman castanet. And then wind blows the willows. And you can start to raise your heel and your toes by feeling the connection to the hip. And if this is comfortable for you, just with a little step in. Good. And then on the other side, so left foot forwards. First of all, fisherman castanet. And then turn in and do. I'm just going to turn my front foot out a bit, although I'm turning the opposite way, but it's all controlled, if you like, by the center of the body. And then if it's comfortable with the step in, back to your chair. Coming back to sitting and going back to that Zhang exercise that I mentioned earlier, and how we find ways to sit or to stand, depending on how you're doing it, that are different. Come up, we learn to not tense up the shoulder muscles or the hips or whatever. This is a process of unlearning, I think, and it's quite a difficult one. It takes a long time to break those old habits of movement, and they're there for all sorts of reasons. But you'll find that it's very easy to slip back into them. So it takes quite a lot of dedicated effort, I think, to do that. So if you find it's quite difficult, that's not surprising. So now just coming back to sitting, embrace tiger, return to mountain. Just trying to keep that flow of the movement, that sense of the structure, and aware of those internal dynamics of movement. Expansion, contraction, filling and emptying, however you care to describe it to yourself. And then rest. Lovely. Thank you as always, everybody. I hope that was useful to you.
Thank you, Mike. Lovely.
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Yeah. Bye all.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody. Or rest of the day, and I'll see you soon, I hope.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.